Parker, what the hell did you do to the TV studio? You broke the whole damn thing.
Been there for 40 minutes working on chairs, buddy. Putting chairs together. You don't know I did it all, did you? Huh? You're going to get to use them today.
There you go.
Stay hot.
We are back in our old digs. Let's see if I can remember how to do this.
Feels weird, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, because, I mean, we don't have the full shot.
Really close to you, too.
If I'd known that, I would have worn Birkenstocks today or something like that.
Penny loafers.
No, not.
Is that the same thing?
No.
I don't know.
It's going to be a hard show to do today. My dauber's down. It's
Why?
Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, the Fan Sportsnet. I don't know, man.
How's that different than any other day?
I don't know. Just
explain it to us.
Nah, just kind of, you know. Dog days.
I got one speed, buddy.
It's a dog days.
I'm in it already.
The Jays and the Red Sox will play their. I mean, I've even lost track. It's their fourth
They got
game.
28 games left.
27.
8.
20,
They had 29
whatever.
yesterday. 28 games left.
5 and 16. 20. Yeah, you're right. 7 o'clock will be the first pitch tonight. Boy, there's a lot to talk about. Well, I mean, I was going to say there was a lot to talk about out of yesterday's game, but I mean, 65, 69, 66, and 68. What's the difference?
Game's at 7:10 too, by the way. It's not at 7 o'clock.
Well,
I mean, you can write it down.
Well, tune in at 7 o'clock.
Seriously.
Tune in at 7 o'clock. Who the hell? Nobody. Just
Well,
tune in
you're
at 7
lying to the
o'clock and get the
people.
pregame show. I'm not lying to the people. Not lying to people. Tune in at 7 o'clock. You get the pregame show. You get all set up. Get the lineups and everything, and away you go. Last night, Yariel Rodriguez, Mr. Barker, through 79 pitches, got 7 whiffs, 1 in his splitter. His velo was down about a mile an hour. Now, we've talked about how one of the things you want to see down the stretch here is just what exactly the Jays have in Yariel Rodriguez. And, we already know that I think in a perfect world, he comes back next year. Well, he's going to be back next year anyhow, but in a perfect world, he's part of your rotation next year. Got to ask you this, though. Like, I understand that this is a weird situation. Essentially, you have a guy who hasn't pitched for a year, and the last time he pitched, he was a reliever. The last time he pitched on a regular basis, he was a reliever in Japan. And now they're trying to turn him into a starter in the major. So I understand that this is something Pete Walker's been presented with that he hasn't been presented with before. But I'm a little surprised that not just that the average velo isn't there, but it's not like this guy's overworked. And it doesn't seem as if when he needs that extra oomph on his pitch, it doesn't seem as if it's there. That's kind of odd, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I whenever I saw that last night, I had to, do some asking of people that would know the answer to that. They don't know the answer either. I think that's sort of where they're at with Yariel is, they're trying to find, and this is what I said after the game last night, they're trying to find a consistent routine. They're trying to find a sweet spot in his mechanics to where he can repeat that and, sort of get him refined with arm slot, right? I mean, for me, he tries to trick too many people. You try and trick too many people, it looks the way it's looked. Whenever he has had some decent games, he goes in attack mode. Like it is, here's my best stuff. See if you can hit it. And I think with the money that they have to spend in the offseason, they're sort of at the point where they need to know real quick whether this dude's a starter or a reliever. And I think there's going to tell them in about the next 4 starts whether they got confidence going in the next season to give him the ball every 5 days. So
you're not buying.
Yeah, that's sort of the. I think they're on the fence a little bit of where and what just because of where they're at as an organization. This, like what they're going to have to spend in the offseason on what they are spending it on. Ain't another rotation arm. I mean, that's something you could trade for, I guess, to find a number 5 guy. But they already got 3 or 4 of them here. So they're trying to figure out if this dude can be the fourth guy, and then you use the 2 or 3 other guys that you got to fill in the fifth spot. So, yeah, I think that's sort of where they're at, right? I would love to see him. This is just me. I'd love to see him can all those pitches he's got, do 3. He's got a good heater that has natural cut to it, which – they stop with the khaki thing and forcing him to have the spin rate off the fingers and get the elevated fastball. And we saw how that went, right? The number of pitches per batter, the number of pitches per inning went way up because his fastball is non-competitive. So they eliminated that. They're allowing him to throw the cutter, fastball, whatever you want to call that thing. That's his primary fastball. And be a hard slider guy. He loves the split finger. I mean, that split finger's good to lefties. Be a grip it and rip it guy. I don't think he's a finesse dude. Like all the trickery and all those kind of things, I just don't think that's what he is. So I think the next 4 starts, I guess that's sort of what he's got, right? I mean, unless they call Bloss up and with the days off in September, who knows how many starts. We'll say 4. The next 4 starts, you'd like to see a step forward, right? Predictability. Like I don't want to say he's competing for a spot, but I'm going to say he's competing for a spot. So, yeah, it's that's where Petey's at, I think. Pete Walker is – sort of, how do you get it to where it's repeatable? How do you get it to where the consistent velocity is always there, not sometimes? It is a little odd that he's hit the wall 27 and, like you said, hasn't thrown a ton. That's what they're dealing with. So I always thought it's sort of like the Kevin Gausman thing, right? If you're doing something wrong mechanically, your velocity is going to suffer. I would think they're going to start there. They'll try and figure out what that is, try and figure something out that's simple. He can repeat it and don't overthink it. And I do think, sometimes we hear all 3 catchers that work for Sportsnet talk about Kirky. How, he's all fine and dandy catching them big 3. Mm-hmm. They've been around forever. They're having a tough time. Like the game plan's real simple. If I want to vary from it because the dude's showing you're supposed to do that, he feels confident in doing that. This is where I think showing up with a veteran catcher, it's like the lefty up 3-1 count.
3-1 count.
Call timeout, run out there, look the dude in the eyeball and say, dude, don't throw it close. There's a righty on deck. This dude's been hot.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of, maybe have serve and catch him next time. Maybe there's a little bit of fire in the belly. Kirky don't have that. Let's be honest. Like lollipopping the ball back and, he's not going to sort of look a dude in the eye and say, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, he ain't that guy. Mm-hmm. So I think he's one of the dudes that sort of needs that, right? Every once in a while, you need a little kick in the derriere. So, maybe I think it's a combination of if you're not only hearing it from your pitching coach, which I know he's heard it from him, it's good to hear it from other people like your catcher. So maybe they do a little finagling with that and just give him more conviction. Here's 3 pitches. Here's something you can repeat with your mechanics. Get out there and get after it. And then see how it looks, and then you build off of that. So it's intriguing. It's just intriguing because the sense of urgency. It is there. The people I've talked to, it's there. Like, people are going to lose their jobs. Like, if they don't get off to a good start next year. And this is why, this is different. It is. So I think that's where they're at as an organization.
I think that I'm willing to bet they probably thought they would have a better handle on Yariel Rodriguez now than they do.
Yep.
Well, we
riding the fence. This many starts in. I don't think they were going to be riding the fence.
No, I think they figured they thought they would know what he is, and I think they believed that they really did have something. Now, maybe they do. Even you've got the guy for another 2 years, so you're not going to get rid of him. But the question is, you don't want to go into. I don't think if you're the Blue Jays, anyhow. You don't want to go into the offseason thinking, okay, do we bring this? Is this guy come into spring training and do we need bullpen help? Do we put him in the bullpen? Yeah. Is he?
Because it's going to mess up other people, right?
Well, what if Bowden Francis finishes? We've talked about Bowden Francis, Jake Bloss. I mean,
he looks good.
That's a big trade for the GM, and you know as well as I do that if Jake Bloss is any good,
it matters.
Damn right it matters. You don't think they'd like to be able to that next year go to fans and say, "Hey, you remember that Kikuchi deal? We got 3 guys in that deal. 2 of them are in the majors. Yeah. Maybe we'll."
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Yusei, right? Yariel's sort of like that, is where, you saw it, you looked at it, you see how hard he throws. He throws left-handed, but he did all that start and stop. He couldn't throw strikes. He's falling behind. He was, a bunch of pitches per inning. Like, it just looked sort of exactly like this. They had time with Yusei, right? You go home, you see it, we give you something to work
3
on,
years with
you
him,
refine
basically.
it.
Yeah.
They don't have time with this dude. Like, again, there's some urgency here to get off to a good start next year, and they need to hand the ball to guys that they think can do that. So I do think the next 4 starts, I don't think I'm overstating this. I think that's sort of where they're at, and they're going to know at the end. Like, they're going to make their decision one way or the other. So I've been told that, and it's sort of in his court of where you go out there and you do it with some conviction. This is what I said. You see Bowden. Bowden's stuff's not any better. He eliminated a breaking ball. He's throwing more split fingers. He's attacking with a fastball. Like, he's doing it with conviction.
Right.
Like,
Now,
that's what you want to see.
Let's see him against the Minnesota Twins or the
but
Boston
that's not
Red
his fault.
Sox, right?
That's not his fault.
It's not.
Now his
It's
name's
not.
in the conversation.
Yeah.
That's what Yariel has to do. So let's see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you on that. The Jays lost 6-3 last night to the Red Sox. Will Wagner, good game. Couple of doubles, home run off of a left-handed. His first home run, first major league home run off of a left-handed pitcher. Much talk, of course, not just in addition to Yariel Rodriguez, but about the base running as well, especially early in the game. Vladdy stretching.
Yeah, it was dumb.
Which was,
it was dumb.
And
plays right in front of you.
Yeah, it's right in front of you, and the guy holding the ball's pretty good. I mean,
he's fast. He gets to the ball. Anytime a dude gets around it and you ain't halfway to the base you want to end up at, stop and
go back. Exactly. Loper, Fido, and Clement were thrown out of home plate.
The Clement thing I didn't understand. I mean, I get because of how it looked the night before.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was the word. Make sure if you get a chance, put pressure on them. I mean, they'll give you a run. Just so happens they did.
Yeah. And Loper, Fido, I think we're both on the same page.
Two outs, running on contact,
exactly.
Ball off the wall. I mean, took perfect everywhere, right? Hitting the cutoff. He short hopped the cutoff guy. Guy did a good job of picking that up. He followed his throw to his target, threw a strike to Danny. Danny did a good job of tagging. It took perfect everywhere, and that's what happened.
Yeah. And, as a result, the Jays are 65 and 69. But, it was early in the game. I think the Jays had a chance to maybe do a little bit of damage.
0 for 6, 9 left on base. I mean, that's a big deal. Again, where you're at in the rotation, what a guy's going through. You need sometimes to get the big hit, give him a little breath of fresh air out there, let him exhale. Just so happens it didn't work out that way. Varshaw's bat looks a little bit better. I mean, that's a bomb he hit. He pulled that ball foul. Most people that do that have a bad at bat after that. He looked to me like he's cut himself off with his lower half a little bit, trying to keep his front side in, and added a little length to his swing because you're a pull hitter. And I know Caleb has brought this up a couple of times on the TV side.
He's pulled that average up a little bit.
He's trying to go the other way. Like, you can obviously see that he's trying to use the other side of the field, which, a guy that's hitting somewhere around the Mendoza line make you change some things. So I just, again, you like what he's trying to do. You like the length in the swing. I mean, that homer he hits, that's a bomb, dude. I mean, that was way up.
That was way up.
That's like the Wagner home run in the bullpen. I mean, the ball that wind does weird things there. That's a bomb. So, I mean, I'm getting my booster juice today, and the person knew who I was and said, "Man, they're fun to watch." I'm like,
getting your booster juice?
Yeah, I mean, does things for me. Gives me a little pep in my step, Jeff. So I was getting that, and I was having a little conversation with the person, and they're enjoying the team. I mean, it is funny how when you see a little youth and you start seeing bombs,
they are.
It's okay losing. Yeah. Ain't that big a deal, is it? I mean, it is, but it ain't.
Well, people want, we've talked about this ad nauseum here. People want to be entertained. Part of the deal with watching a team is you want to be entertained. And
run for preventing.
And this team was not only, this team is boring. When it's bad, it's boring bad.
Well said.
This is a bad combination.
Yeah.
We have not talked about this guy, but we know that the Blue Jays bullpen, that they're going to need to do a lot of work in the offseason. Eric Swanson now. That outing against Cincinnati wasn't very good, but he gave up 3 hits and 3 runs in the third of an inning. But very quietly, if you look at what Eric Swanson has done this month, Kevin, is a fastball command explaining the difference? Is the splitter? He looked really good last night. He's had a couple of games where, quite frankly, he's You know, he struck multiple guys out. He looks more like the guy we thought, we thought we'd see this year.
Yeah, I think his velocities went up on his fastball, which has helped him get away with some mistakes. I mean, I think his split finger's still not splitting the way he wants it to. Sounds to me like he's changed the grip on that. He's trying to keep it more in the zone. The sliders helped, right? I mean, give him a little different angle, different quadrant of the strike zone to have to cover, right? He's not so predictable when he's added that pitch. And again, I think he's got nothing to lose. Like, you go out there, you let it eat. It's not like he's fighting for a job, I don't think, because of his contract. He'll be back next year. I mean, they can't rebuild. They can't do the entire pen. And if you got a guy, I mean, that's why the bullpen, those front offices that try and win every year try and have turnover, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's that, you have a really good one, you're going to have a stinker. That's why they have turnover. And then the next one, hopefully you're bouncing back. You're learning from your mistakes. You're adding a pitch. You throw a little harder. There's some urgency there to get it done. And I think that's sort of, and again, we got to remember how springtime. I'm not making excuses for these dudes. Like, like the Yariel thing. Like, he's 27, man. I've been around long enough, thrown enough pitches. I mean, he's doing it at the best level in the entire world. I mean, they're flying planes, and it's not like they're coach. And I mean, come on, it's like so. Yeah, look, I think he's all of a sudden you're okay with him coming in. Now, would you be comfortable next year giving him the ball, up a run in the seventh inning? Only time will tell, but you sort of like the adjustments he's made.
I've got to tell you that, that's the one thing I'm going to struggle with a little bit in the offseason is, last year, bringing all those guys back. It's almost now like I'm scared to think of all these guys coming back.
You know what, Jeff? Go out and get a closer. That's how. Yeah, use some of the assets you got if you have to trade for them. I mean, get creative. Do something. Yeah. You take care of the ninth inning. All those other guys are okay then. Like, you're okay filling in the blanks. Now Swansons of the world are sixth inning guys. Like, you're not forcing them to be eighth inning guys. Like, just by solidifying that one inning. Now Chad Green could be your hybrid guy. You get Romano back, he can do some things, whatever inning you want to do. Now you'd have three closers at the back end. You'd make it a high school game just by doing that one thing. So that's what I said about the rotation. Like, they need to solidify that. They need to know what they got because of what they're having to spend and what they're going to have to use their assets on. So that's intriguing. Again, it's more fun watching the young kids. They like to say they're swinging harder. I think they're having good approaches. I think Barger's all of a sudden is an educated guesser. Didn't know he had that in him. Like, so you're seeing some guys growing right before your eyes, which is kind of fun to watch. And now if you're a fan, you got something when you turn the TV on. It's not the same old boring oldest lineup in the American League East you're watching. It's some dudes who are left-handed who can thump a little. It's kind of fun to watch.
Yeah. No, and part of me also kind of wonders, there are guys, you do see hitters who, when they get to the majors, realize they're getting better quality pitches thrown at them. Guys who might be around the strike zone a little more, and they adapt accordingly.
Yeah, it's
I'm not saying guys are so good they make you better, but I think in some cases, especially when a guy has bat speed, like Barger's got raw bat speed, sometimes I think that guy realizes, you know what? These guys are actually around the zone a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm still intrigued. Other than Horowitz and Clement, who else would they take next year? If you're taking,
it's got to be Loperfido.
Well, again, there's some unknowns there, right? If you're taking all of them, you haven't done your job as a front office. So that I think is the big decision here, right? Is what you're bringing in and who's going to be suffering because of that. But there's 29 other teams, right? That's the thing you got to be playing for if you're one of these young guys.
You've also still got a lot of options with these guys.
Sure do.
You know that guys are going to, you know that there will be injuries. So
Springer's probably not going to play all year. He's going to be a year older. So you're exactly right.
There's a chance you see a couple of these. I don't think all these guys are going to be in the majors next year. You may see Barger, you may see Wagner back at AAA to start the year.
I would.
You know what you're going to have. I'll tell you what, you're going to have competition coming out of the ass in spring training.
Yeah, I hope not. I hope not.
Oh, for bench, I want 4 or 5 guys fighting for that bench job.
Boy, that's a lot. Like again, this is for me. This is like no other year for the front office. Like they got to know going in. Like the first five guys in your order. If you want to throw Springer in the leadoff spot, after that, other than Bo and Vlad, you got to know who the other two dudes. And the other two dudes ain't on your team.
No, but I don't think it's a bad thing to have. Wagner, Loper,
I mean, that's sort of what they're doing now, no?
Fighting. Well, I don't think it's bad to have them come into spring training and be fighting for a job, too.
Yeah, I think as a coaching staff, as a front office, you already got to know that. And, like, this is one of those years where you got to have all your ducks in a line there and, be raring and ready to go.
Yeah, well, that should have been the case this year, too.
Oh, I mean, should have, could have.
And the year before.
There you go. Bing, bang, boom.
Dan O'Dowd of the MLB Network joins us in the next hour. David Samson, he'll be along as well. We're going to take a break. We've got Jays tickets to give away as well. I forgot about that, Jays and Phillies tickets. We're going to take a break, and we come back. Looking forward to this.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Glavine will join us. We're going to talk about the Braves, who, boy, they get Gio Urshela and Whit Merrifield, and they're still hanging in there. And we'll talk to Tom Glavine about that. And we're also going to talk to Tom Glavine a little bit about Justin Verlander's comments on Sunday Night Baseball about starting pitchers going deeper into games. This guy was a master of it. This whole staff was a master of it. Tom Glavine joins us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan and Sportsnet. 7:10 will be the first pitch tonight. First Bassett of the... What are you doing? Bassett taking on Brian Bayo.
Fourth gear, baby.
I'd like to know what they put in that booster juice.
Yep. Well, I go there every day. You know what you're getting every day with me, Jeff, right here. Ain't none of this, buddy. Right there. Get used to it.
I mean, I am used to it. It's like we've been together for like at least a couple of years. 2 years, I think it was.
How many?
I don't know how many years. Someone asked me that the other day. I said, I don't know.
Like 8.
8?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Who did I make mad?
Yeah, I guess so. So 8 years, that's like 17 managers, right? Not really.
18 after this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, John.
No, don't say it.
I apologize.
Dan O'Dowd of the MLB Network will join us in the next hour. David Samson. Pardon me.
Wow.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, I thought you were
good.
We also got a chance to win tickets to see the Jays and Phillies at the Rogers Center during the next homestand. Time's away. Time's flying, eh?
28 games, buddy.
28 games? Is that what it is?
Well, it beat you.
65 and 69. Oh, okay.
14 at home, 14 on the road.
I guess. 9, 14, 13. Yeah, something like that.
Just had somebody Instagram me say 20 and 8 in the next 28 games.
Caleb's got to stop Instagramming you during the show. He's got to
That's crazy, right?
It is.
Some youngins and some homers, boy, all of a sudden.
There's got people are energized. This is, as I said, they are much more fun to watch.
They are. Even when they lose.
Yeah.
Vladdy just absolutely destroying baseball. Like I'm talking just
that thing last night.
It's crazy. Like it is just it's effortless.
I mean, like it was like a. I mean, if
man,
I'm surprised it didn't leave burn marks on the grass. I mean, it was.
You try and remember dudes that consistently hit the ball as hard as he does. It's just amazing. It is truly amazing. Like the point of when he's making contact out in front of his front leg. Like he has to get himself out. Like I think that's where he's at now. And again, I hate to continue to say this. You hope that they haven't screwed this up by not putting things around him. You pitcher having a couple other thumpers around him and a healthy bow. Holy like it looked like 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully they do it in the offseason. Figure out some way, somehow.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you got to do is, we're not even, we're going to go a whole show. Well, no, we won't because we've got O'Dowd and Samson on, and I know you're itching to talk to them about giving guys long-term contracts and that.
I know what you're going to start with, the trade of Bo Bichette.
I'm not trading.
It must happen to get what you need.
Stop it. Let's bring in Tom Glavine. He is a Hall of Fame pitcher. current analyst with the Braves. Tom, thanks so much for joining us on Blair and Barker today. We've got a lot to talk to you about, so I want to get that right away. We wanted to get some of your thoughts on some stuff that Justin Verlander said on Sunday Night Baseball, and we'll do that in a minute. But I just got to ask you about the Braves. You know, it seemed for the longest time there, every time I was turning on my laptop, another guy was getting hurt, and another guy was coming in, and another guy was getting hurt, and another guy was coming in, and then the guy coming in got hurt. And I look up today, and they're 6 back of the Phillies, but they've got a pretty good, they're pretty good position in the wild card race right now. Chris Sale is something else, and I mean they're getting guys like Gio Urshela playing well, and what they can sweep the Twins tonight. I mean, explain that to me.
Well, I mean, I think it speaks a lot to Brian Snitker and the culture that he has developed and built there. Those guys love him and they want to play for him, and I do think they have that next up guy mentality, right? I mean, they feel like, okay, yeah, we're kind of going through some injuries and some things, and you know what? Nobody's going to feel sorry for you, so you got to go out there and play the best with what you have each and every night. And they've done a good job of that. And those guys that have come over, Merrifield and the guy from Detroit there, I can't think of his name, but I said this to an Atlanta show this week. It's like, those guys got to feel like they won the lottery, right? They got released. They're out of, they're looking for a job. And then the next thing you know, they land with the Atlanta Braves, and there's not many better places to play in terms of the culture and the media and all that stuff. So, and those guys have just settled in and done a nice job and kind of held the fort until guys can come back. So, the pitching's been really good. That certainly has kept them in a good position all year long. Your point, Chris Sale has, you talk about a guy who's revived himself, but, in fairness to Chris, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy the last couple of years. And this year he has, and you see what he's capable of doing. But, they're a resilient group. And, to me, whether they catch the Phillies or not, nobody's given up on that, they're still going to be potentially a very dangerous team going into the postseason because of that pitching staff. Nobody's going to want to play them in a short series.
Tom, is there the most important guy for the Braves, or could it be the entire bullpen? Could it be the entire lineup? Could it be you mentioned the rotation? The Braves always seem to play really good defense. They run the bases really well. Is there a part of their game, or is there one person that you can point the finger at that says, if this person continues to do this or take a step forward, they'll make the playoffs and make a decent run at this thing?
Well, I think it's a little bit of all of that. I mean, I think that collectively the way they play the game allows them to have success most of the time. They pitch well. Their starting pitching has been good. So they go out there, they give their guys a chance pretty much every night. The back end of the bullpen, the positive innings on the bullpen, the Iglesias and those guys have been good. When the Braves get the lead, I'm not going to say it's automatic, but, Iglesias has been as close to automatic as you're going to get in terms of the guy going out there and saving ball games for you. So that's a big part of it. They do play good defense. They don't give up too many extra outs for teams. Offensively, in fairness to them, it's been a little bit of struggle, but it's in comparison to what they did last year, and what they did last year was historic. And I don't think it would have been fair to think they were going to go out there and do what they did last year again, even with a healthy lineup. But if there is one guy, I think, that stirs the drink, particularly offensively, it's Marcell Ozuna. He's just had an unbelievable year. To see the start that Marcell got off to last year, whereby, the middle of May, there was calls for him getting released and get rid of this guy. And then all of a sudden, at the end of May, a trip down to Miami and South Beach, he turned things around. And since that point in time, he's been unbelievable. He's very much in the MVP discussion this year. So I think he's the one guy that, through everybody else's struggles, has really maintained a tremendous level of consistency, has kind of been that one guy that they've been able to lean on offensively.
Tom, at Chris's age, Chris Sale, he's 35, making 24 starts. How's he been able to do that? Has he made a mechanical change? Has he changed how he throws certain pitches or eliminated a pitch? How's he been able to make 24 starts this year?
It's funny. I laugh when I hear that question, because I think about it. I'm like, so he made 35. He's made 25 starts at 35 years old. What's the big deal? I mean, we used to do that all the time, right?
Yeah.
But it's a different game now, and that's the way it is. And I think the Braves have done a good job with him and Lopez in particular, in trying to limit their workload a little bit, and they've done it a number of ways, but mostly through they build in the off days. You know, like when I was going through it and we had our 5-man rotation, you know, generally speaking, the 5th man got skipped every time we had an off day. You know, so that's why we made 35 or 36 starts a year. Now they're incorporating that off day every chance they get. And then, you know, even on top of that, they have manipulated their rotation from time to time where they'll call somebody up and have a spot start and give those guys even another extra day's rest. So they've done a really good job with it. And I think, you know, look, with Chris Sale, you know, you have concerns over, obviously, because you look at him and you say, you know, the first thing you say, and I did it too when they got Chris, was like, okay, well, man, if this guy can stay healthy, he's really good, but he's had a hard time doing that. But then when you do a little bit deeper dive, you know, beyond the Tommy John surgery that he came back from a few years ago, his other injuries have been like fluke non-pitching injuries. You know, I think he came back from Tommy John and broke a finger on a line drive that was hit back at him. Then I think he hurt his wrist doing something away from the ballpark. So it hasn't really been the baseball injuries. And I think you're just seeing a situation now where everything has been healthy, and he has said it himself. He, for the first time in a long time, actually had a winter where he could work out and get stronger and not feel like he was recovering from something. And couple that with the Braves doing a nice job of restricting his workload. I mean, you're seeing what he's capable of doing. But, you know, obviously the big surprise in that rotation has been Lopez, you know, a guy who's been predominantly a reliever. To see what he's gone out there and done this year in that rotation has been really, really remarkable.
Tom, Justin Verlander was on Sunday Night Baseball talking about a story that Jesse Rogers of ESPN reported, and it's been talked about a fair amount since then. But that the commissioner's office, whatever you want to call it, MLB officials, are discussing ways of making sure the starting pitcher stays in the game longer. And they're thinking of, you know, there's been some talk about got to go a minimum of 6 innings or 100 pitches or whatever it is. You know, there's talk about the double hook where if you take a starting pitcher out, you lose your DH. You know, Kevin and I had this discussion yesterday. You know, Kevin, and I think rightly, looks at it as this is a systemic thing. This isn't something you're necessarily going to cure by just tossing a rule in, right? It's stuff that has to happen at the level with kids and all through the minors and all that. But do you think it's a discussion worth having, I guess is what I would ask you. Do we need to at least try to figure out a way to return the starting pitcher to some form, I'm not going to say importance, but maybe return things a little bit, Tom, to it was when you guys pitched. I remember going to watch you guys pitch. I wanted to see you guys pitch. Yeah, it was great. The Braves are playing the Expos. That's wonderful. But I wanted to see Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz against, you know, whoever, Pedro, Dennis Martinez. I wanted to go and see the pitching matchup.
You know, listen, I think in a broader conversation, my answer is yes, I do. I mean, I still think there is a tremendous amount of value in starting pitching and having good starting pitching, right? We have these discussions and people try to, I guess, minimize the importance of a starting pitcher, and wins don't really matter and this, that, and the other. But you look at all the teams that are playoff contenders and are serious World Series contenders, I promise you they all have good starting pitching, right? They're not going out there with one starting pitcher and then having a bullpen game the other 4 nights. That's not happening. You know, I still maintain teams that have bullpen nights aren't doing it because it necessarily makes them a better team. They're doing it because they don't have any other options, right? And maybe the bullpen game makes them a better team on any given night because that 5th guy they would have to throw out there is not very good. So I get that. But I do think that if there was a way to return prominence to the starting pitching role beyond who kind of the superstars are, then yeah, I think it's good for the game. But I agree. I think it's a systemic thing. Like the culture has to change. You know, I always maintain, you know, we always have these discussions in fairness. You know, people now looking at today's starting pitching now looks at my generation And, they talk about, oh, my goodness, you guys made 35 starts a year and you pitched 220 innings a year and you did this and you did that. Oh, my God, look at guys today. Well, you take my generation and compare it to Nolan Ryan and Fergie Jenkins and those guys, they'll say that my generation was soft because they were making 40 starts a year and pitching 300 innings a year. So it's all relative. But I maintained, and I firmly believe this, if I grew up in an environment of professional baseball where I was groomed in a 4-man rotation, I would have found a way to do it. I was groomed in a 5-man rotation. That's what we did. So that's how we did it. I think these guys today are being groomed to pitch the way that they pitch, right? These guys, I don't necessarily fault a lot of these guys when it's, 5 innings and they're done, or 5 1/3, or they can't flip a lineup for the 3rd time, because that's what they're being told. Mm-hmm. That's what the people who are running baseball now are telling them, right? And my question would be, well, how do you know I can't flip a lineup for the 3rd time if you don't let me do it, or at least let me try to do it, right? I look at it from my career. When I got to the big leagues, I was on end of my minor league career was on the very beginning of pitch counts, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't the end-all, be-all. So when I got to the big leagues, I would throw minor league games where I threw 100 pitches, and I might have got through 5 or 6 innings in the minor leagues. Well, now you get to the big leagues, and now you're throwing a little bit more. And now all of a sudden you're in the 7th inning, and you're starting to get tired. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I never did this in the minor leagues. So now you got to learn, okay, well, I'm getting a little bit tired. I got to learn how to get guys out when I feel this way. And I just think guys aren't being given that opportunity anymore because they're being told, listen, you got 95 to 98 in the tank. Go out there for however long you have and air it out on every pitch. And if it's 5 innings, great. If it's 4, that's fine too. And I just think so much of it is a mentality that these guys are being groomed under, that I think until that mentality changes throughout baseball, I don't know how it changes. And I saw that rule discussion that you talked about, and I laughed when I saw it because my first thing was, well, how are you going to make a starting pitcher go out there and throw 100 pitches? How are you going to do that? How are you going to make a team leave a starting pitcher out there if he's getting his butt kicked on a given night?
Yeah.
Because the rules say he's got to stay out there. I mean, it's just it seems silly on its face, but I'm a bigger believer. I like the double hook thing more so than I do the. I think that's a more of a deterrent for a team to have an opener and have bullpen games. I think that's more of a deterrent.
Tom, I just wonder about the arm of a pitcher. Can it handle that, right? You just broke it down better than I could break it down. But I'm thinking to myself, if I'm being taught to throw as hard as I can and not have a fastball count, it's how can I ask my arm now to back off and give him another 25 pitches? Is an arm capable of doing that would be my question.
I look at I know I'm old school and I don't want to sound like a fuddy-duddy. I try not to because I know, games evolve and every professional game is different now than my generation of guys who played their game. So I get that. But again, I look at my own career and it was a process of learning how to condition yourself to stay out there for 120 pitches or 115 pitches, right? And I can promise you that none of us, and I say none of us, I say at least my group, right? Me, Smoltzy, Maddox, and, Avery and a lot of the guys that were there, none of us were max effort guys, and I think that's a big problem with today's game is that everything everybody does is max effort. Like we learned how to go in the bullpen and throw more in between starts and learn how to make our curveball curve or our slider slide or get the spin we wanted on our changeup or whatever, doing that at 60 or 70% effort level. So then when you went into a game, it was easier to do that, but you didn't have to max effort every single pitch you threw to make the ball do what you want it to do. There was some touch and some feel. But I feel like in today's game, if you have a conversation with somebody and say, because I did it out of necessity, like when I got to the big leagues, I could throw 90 to 92, but I didn't know where it was going, and I didn't know it throw enough strikes. And I knew that if I was going to be successful after a 17-year loss my first year in the big leagues, I better throw more strikes. So I learned how to do that at a 95% effort level where, okay, instead of pitching at 90 to 92, I'm pitching at 88, And if I want to go to 90 to 92 every once in a while, I can, but it wasn't every pitch. You know, and I think that's the problem with guys today is that it's a max effort thing every pitch. And not only does that take a lot out of you on a given night, it's no wonder guys have a hard time staying healthy, because I don't care what you do. You swing a golf club or whatever you do it at max effort every single time you do it, then your chances of staying healthy long term, I got to believe, are going to be diminished. And I think it's been backed up by the amount of injuries we've seen with pitchers, particularly starting pitchers.
Yeah.
Tom, great stuff as
Awesome.
always, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, you guys have a great afternoon. Thanks.
You too.
Thank you.
Tom Glavine.
That's great.
Yeah, and lucky. I was lucky enough to spend a fair amount of time in the postseason and that around that Braves staff in spring training. I love that Braves staff was not just what they did on the field, but I mean, you want to talk about dudes who could talk baseball off the field. There's something else.
I just don't know how you ask pitchers to do it. That's why I get back to teach hitting better. I just don't know how you ask them to do that. All of a sudden now it's a pitcher's fault that nobody can put a ball in play. That's not my fault. It's not my fault. I've mastered my craft and I can throw it harder than you can hit it, or I can spin a breaking ball and tunnel it off a fastball. It's not my fault. Teach a hitter better.
I do think, and I think this is why, probably Tom liked the idea as well. I do like that idea of the double hook, because that allows you, or doesn't allow you. It gives a manager who's letting a pitcher stay out there longer credit. It gives them, you get credit for that. You get to keep the DH in the game more. And the other thing is, it's, we talked about yesterday, it adds an element of strategy to the game, because now when you make that decision, obviously if a guy's melting down, you're going to make the decision anyhow. And what the hell, we'll pinch hit for him twice for that spot if it comes up. It adds another element to it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In a lot of ways, it's like the ghost runner in extra innings. Everybody's going, oh, that sucks. And then when you think about it, you know what? That adds an element of strategy. If you're the visiting team, you're playing for 2 runs in that extra inning. You're not playing for 1 run.
Yeah, so you would like to keep Yariel Rodriguez in the game when he stinks.
No, I take him out.
That's the thing.
No,
that's the thing, right?
No.
That's not. I mean, again, you're penalizing the team because the guy's just having a bad day.
Get better pitchers.
That's not.
Get better pitchers.
Not everybody can do that. Like that's why they're doing it this way.
Get better pitchers.
They're getting more high octane dudes out of the pen. I get back to this. There's 7 300 hitters in baseball.
Yeah, but
7.
But what is that? Okay,
that has a lot to do with it.
What?
A lot. That means guys don't care to put the ball in play. There's 300 hitters.
Okay, but how does that?
There's like 250 everyday players.
Let me finish. How does that impact? What does that got to do with managers taking pitchers out after 5 innings?
It's basically they want more action. How you get more action is teach a hitter better. How much more fun is the Blue Jays watching, putting balls in play and hitting homers? It has a lot to do with it. That's the whole point in doing this, is because pitching is so good that hitters can't make adjustments or they don't want to make them.
You want starting pitchers to stay in the game longer. That's what it is.
To add more, it's like if I see the dude 3 times, I got a better chance of hitting him the 3rd time. That's what it's all about.
You still may not see the guy 3 times.
That's the thing, right? It's the top of the order for 3 times. That's why. That's why the smart people, the khakis that are running this thing, have it down to a science, and that's why they have it that way.
You're either gonna have to change the way you teach hitting, or you're gonna have to change the way you teach pitching.
Well, how about you pay them? You pay them to hit 300 again. How about you do that? Like putting the ball in play matters now. The 3 true outcome thing, it's over. Like, how about try that?
It's never going to happen.
Well, why not?
Because people want to see home runs.
People still hit home runs, hitting for high average.
People want to see home runs.
You know who is hitting 300? Bobby Witt Jr., Aaron Judge, Vladdy, Ozuna, Arise, Yordan Alvarez, and Quan. Quan's the only dude who don't hit homers.
Well, how many home runs does Arise hit?
He's a punch and Judy guy. So 2 out of the 7 don't.
It's. I just think it's easier to do it this way. And as I said, it's easier and faster to do it that way.
You're giving hitters a hall pass, is what you're doing.
No, I'm trying to do whatever I can to create more action in the game, and it's that simple.
You're trying to punish a pitcher. And again, it's going to cost people jobs because now instead of that guy you go to in the sixth inning.
Figure it out.
Oh, man. I could say it's like the underground city in Tampa's head's about to pop off.
Don't use an opener. Teams should not use openers. Why would you use an opener?
Because it works. That's why.
Doesn't work.
Because absolutely it does.
Doesn't always work.
It does work. That's why they do it. Because you throw a guy who's throwing 99 to the top of the order because the dude that's starting that day
Teams
ain't
winning
good
World
at throwing
Series
that
using
many.
Openers?
No, but they're good at making the playoffs that way. So, yeah, it's a lot of luck when you get in the playoffs, but you got to get there.
Yeah.
And not everybody's got 5 dudes that they hand the ball to that's going to give them a quality start every single time.
Go get them.
It's like,
well, go get them.
Good luck.
Go get them. Get better pitchers.
There's like 5 teams in baseball that do that.
Get better pitchers.
Oh, man.
Well,
that's crazy.
Get better pitchers.
Again, you are just glossing over the offensive side of the ball, and you shouldn't be doing that.
No,
as long as you've been around baseball, and as good as it used to be of watching a guy fight and claw, how many times does Dan Shulman and Buck Martinez say how cool Horowitz at bats are when he's fouling off 9 pitches?
You're the one that doesn't like those at bats.
I didn't say that. When he has success and puts a ball in play, as rewarded for it. I was talking about the 8-pitch out. Big difference. So it's like, yeah.
It's going to happen anyhow. You can argue.
Yeah, well.
Happen. They're already using the double hook in some minor leagues. It'll happen. And I think it's great. I think it adds another element.
I think it's dumb.
It adds another element of strategy to it.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, of just an absolute dude stinking, and now I got to waste my DH because of it.
Tough. You've got pinch hitters.
Now the manager's going to be sitting over there going, man, I really got to throw this guy out there again because I'm going to lose my DH. What if my DH is Vladimir Guerrero Jr.?
Oh, you know what? My suggestion.
Come on. And now you're going to think about who your DH is because of who's pitching that. Exactly. That is the dumbest thing ever.
No,
seriously.
No,
how many managers and organizations are good enough to even think that out and actually have success doing it?
I think organizations adapt. If you give them new rules, they adapt. I mean,
so we're putting Kevin Biggio in the DH or David Schneider instead of whoever else I'd rather put there who can thump.
Well, yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, you're already doing it. David Schneider's already DHing for you.
But not when you have to leave your guy out there. Oh, man alive.
Well,
like
again, you have to think about this. You have to think about this. On days where you've got a good starting pitcher going, that's when Vladdy can DH. On days where Yariel Rodriguez is going, have somebody else.
Boy, just
teams adapt.
Don't you love it when them khakis are running organizations in Major League Baseball? It absolutely does. No. There's somebody smart sitting around going, man, they ain't enough action.
No, you know what?
These dudes throwing are too good.
You've got it wrong. This is a result of the khakis that they're doing this. This is a result of analytics that they're doing.
It's
a reaction to it. It's a reaction to it.
I'm in the camp again of make the hitting better.
Make the hitting better.
Teach hitting better.
Teach hitting.
Yeah.
We've
teach them how to hit velocity in different quadrants.
Let's start. It's Wednesday. Let's start now.
Let's start making a dude who's used to airing it out, like Tom was talking about. Now all of a sudden you got to finesse your way through 3 innings. Good luck staying healthy doing that.
Yeah, well,
good luck.
Get better pitchers. Get better pitchers.
Yeah, it's just like they grow on trees. There's like a giant tree that everybody's going to go and pick 75 really good starting pitch. It's like, man. It's going to give us a good chance if we're still doing this.
Are you finished?
A chance to argue and yell and throw things.
No, we won't be doing it. We won't be doing this by the time that rule comes in.
What do you think it's happening?
Well, I think it will have to be the next CBA. I don't know if you can necessarily bring it in right now.
It'll be interesting to see what actual everybody other than Verlander thinks about that.
It's interesting if you look at a lot of players' polls. A lot of players like the idea.
I mean,
a lot of executives like the idea.
A lot of starting pitchers have made a ton of money airing it out for 4 or 5 innings, too.
Anyhow, we haven't solved anything.
Well, we have.
Dan O'Dowd is a former MLB GM. He's now an MLB Network analyst. He'll join us next. David Samson as well. And I've got Jay's Phillies tickets. You know I'm right. It's Blair and Barker on the Sportsnet Radio Network and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker. David Samson will join us. Just got to clear my throat. Sorry. Normally I turn the microphone off. I apologize for that. Standards are slipping. It must be this. I'm just not. You know what? I'm not used to the being back in the studio. Just not. I need the open expanses of our other studio.
Adapt and overcome, Jeff. Man.
Especially since they got us new chairs for the other studio, and I was looking forward to sitting my ass in those nice cushy chairs.
These are nice. These are cushy.
Yeah, but those other chairs are sweet.
I did a good job, didn't I? Putting them together.
Yeah, you did put them together. I appreciate that.
Don't think I'm not sending my bill either to whoever I need to send it to in here.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it, those chairs. Anyhow, maybe no more. Maybe no more.
If we're lucky.
If we're lucky. 7:10, first pitch tonight, or 7:07?
I'm afraid to look it up.
It'll be Chris Bassett against Brian Bayo. And then the Jays, they have one more game against Boston, and then they go on to Minnesota. And the Twins, Guardians, and Royals are involved in a bit of a tussle.
Yep.
That's central. And Twins could be swept today by the Atlanta Braves.
Kansas City's good.
Yeah,
They got nothing to lose. They got momentum. They got one of the best players in baseball.
I think we thought they were
supporting cast. They got some things.
I think we thought they're going to be a better team this year. But did you think at this point of the season they'd be in first?
Absolutely not.
Or close to first.
I thought the Guardians and the Twins were way better.
Yeah.
And they aren't. No. So I think that just goes to show you go out and make the right moves on the pitching side. You sign the right young person who can sort of be the star and say, I got it. You got that behemoth who squats behind the plate all the time and just sort of is the captain of everything. And you got a little momentum, and there is a little bit of that. What do we got to lose? So, yeah, I think it's –
they're playing –
there's a little something to that.
I mean, there's absolutely no pressure.
Yeah, but absolutely. Nobody believes that they can make a run at this thing. You just go out there and play good baseball. Don't beat yourself. Get a timely hit every once in a while.
I mean, right now –
they're in first place, Jeff.
2 wild card spots are held by Central teams right now. And this is a year where we talked about you may only have one team with 95 wins. So right now, Kansas City is 2 up in the wild card.
How many wins Kansas City got?
75.
Yeah, they may get in, not have 90 wins.
Yeah, I know.
How about that?
They may win the division and not have.
There you go.
I mean, Cleveland's got 76 wins. Kansas City's got 75. Minnesota's got 72.
Yeah.
And Kansas City's 1 game back in that division. Minnesota's 3.
Yeah.
But again, both of those, I mean, it's entirely possible. There will be just one wild card team out of the, I think likely, just one wild card team out of the AL East this year.
Now, do I think they can beat the big time teams? Probably not. I don't think any of them teams can go on the road and beat the Yankees, the Astros, even the Orioles you could throw in there. I just don't see it happening. But miracles happen, I guess. I mean, the Guardians' pen, I think, is a big deal. I know their offense has been struggling, and Ramirez has not been hitting lately, but
Kansas City's
you got the
run
lead and turn it
differential.
over that pen, man.
Kansas City's run differential is 105, which is second best in the American League behind the Yankees. 105.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you show up, you're expected to win, right? As a team, that's.
Don't look now. Don't look now. But the Detroit Tigers, they're 5.5 out of the wild card. They're 1 game over 500 now. But that division, there's every reason to think that 3 of those teams. I think Detroit can get better next year. Minnesota can get better. I mean, Cleveland at some point. You've almost got to think they're going to have to start trading some guys or doing something because they don't seem to want to lock anybody up long term. But it's the Central,
right?
But yeah, that's that really is a remarkable story.
Yeah, with Bobby Witt Jr., I think now you have an obligation to go out and sort of fill in the blanks every single year now.
And you know what?
I really do think. And that new stadium coming soon?
Yep. And we've talked about Kansas City as a good baseball market.
Absolutely it is.
Good city. I mean, if you got a family, it's a good city.
I haven't seen what attendance is. Have you seen what attendance is?
It's been okay. It's up substantially. I haven't.
In Kansas City, I know Kansas City, whenever you can remember whenever they were really good, how many people would show up.
It's a great base. It's one of my favorite baseball markets.
It's a beautiful place to play.
And Bobby Witt Jr. is almost at the point now where if they are going to spend money on free agents, Bobby Witt Jr. is almost the point now where you may have some good players saying, you know what? Like if I'm going to sign 5 years someplace and they're going to give me money that's
new
equivalent,
stadium's
new
coming.
stadium,
It's going to be fun.
I got that guy.
Yeah. Like just consistently, how do you get good pitching in there? I think that's what it is, right? You get good pitching. Offensively, it seems like they've sort of got that going. So
Kansas City's attendance right now so far through however many games, Kansas City's attendance, they're only 11th out of 15 in Major League or in American League in attendance.
That's too bad.
But their attendance is 1,396,000. That's already more than last year.
Well, they had 50-some wins last year.
They will be 2.2 million in 2017 was kind of the last time they drew over 2 million. They drew 2.7 the year they won the World Series. Mm-hmm. So 1.39. They're averaging 20,000 a game. I mean, it's still it's still not great, but I think a lot of that is. I mean, who knows? I don't know the market. I just be guessing. I think there was some sort of residual discontent over how the new stadium, the team may be trying to get the new stadium, whatever. But it is it really is a good baseball market. And
I'd be intrigued too. So now the football starting, how much? Well, what would that do to attendance and that kind of thing? The Chiefs are right across the street, point. So
yeah, that's a real
again. Bobby Witt Jr.'s must watch. I mean, if you're a fan there, man, holy moly! Why wouldn't you want to go watch that every single day? Just the things he does both sides of the ball, and defensively, he's not a liability anymore, which is kind of cool too, right? So
everything he does is fast. Like you saw him everything he does is quick.
It is. He maximizes fast switch muscles. Like he just does everything, get to the ball in a hurry, and then everything else just sort of falls in place because he's an athletic freak.
Should I do the trivia questions while we have for Down and Out, or trivia question? Why don't we do that? We've been giving you the chance to win Blue Jays tickets all season long here in Blair and Barker. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily baseball trivia question to 590-590. Standard message and data rates may apply. Our last question and answer was, this slugger is best known as a Blue Jay, but ended his career on a tour of the NL East as he played for the Mets, Braves, and had a 27-game stint with the Phillies in his final MLB season. The answer was Jose Bautista. And if you couldn't get it after Mr. Barker's frequent references to the fried chicken commercial that he did, shame on you.
Medium taters.
Today's question is to win tickets to see the Jays and Phillies at the Rogers Center on September 4th.
This is an easy one.
It's
easy.
Joe Carter's, for people of a certain age, it will be. Joe Carter's World Series winning home run against the Phillies in 1993 is unforgettable. But which Jays players were on base when he scored? Were on base and scored. Again, Joe Carter's World Series winning home run against the Phillies in 1993 is unforgettable. But which Jays players were on base and scored? Text the answer to 590-590 for your shot to win. Sportsnet.ca/590. Standard message and data rates may apply. I would have got one of them. I would not have gotten the other one, and shaming me for that. Let's bring in Dan O'Dowd, the MLB Network former MLB general manager. Mr. O'Dowd, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, we appreciate your time.
Hey, good having me on. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. As someone who has been a general manager, Kevin and I have been going back and forth on this a lot. How do you convince yourself that what you're seeing in September is real, good or bad?
Well, I don't think you try to convince yourself. I think it just gets down to years of experience of watching the game to realize it may not be as good as what you're seeing now, but the potential is there to actually be a pretty good player. So I think they've got to be pretty excited right now. And I think the one thing that the younger players have added that you just didn't see from the team all year long was a high level of energy and enthusiasm to compete. And so that dynamic, however that happened, and I still feel like there's holes on the team that need to be addressed this offseason. The one thing you got to be pretty excited about is these kids, man, they have brought some serious energy to the ballpark each and every day, and you can see it with their performance on the field.
Dan, which side of the ball is easier to grade quicker, pitching or on the offensive side?
I think pitching is the hardest thing to evaluate in our game. It's really totally unpredictable. But I think now, guys, even more so than ever, I think you can quantify some metrics as it relates to offensive performance that you never could do before. So, for an example, if a kid's hitting the ball consistently, if he's finding the barrel consistently, if he shows the ability to make some adjustments on a consistent basis, I think you're eventually going to have a pretty good player. Now, again, these short sample size, you can get fooled. So you've got to be more focused on the process of how they're going about performing than the actual result. So even if a kid is not playing exceptionally well right now, but, you like his approach, you like his bat-to-ball skills, you like how he controls the strike zone, you look at his exit velocity, and when he does make contact, they're legitimate. When you break down the mechanics of the swing, biomechanically, it moves well. So even if he's not performing right now, but you like all those things, that's a player you probably just have to be patient with for that the performance to follow at some point in time.
Dan, from afar, what do you make of Vladdy?
Well, I think Vladdy finally made his mind up that he didn't want to be an average player anymore. Like his defined focus is showing up every day and competing. He's not giving away at bats. It's just a totally different mentality about him. I think he's put himself physically. I actually think playing some third base helped him, from a physicality and movement standpoint. And now, they know Vladdy way better than I know him, looking at from the outside in. But if this is the guy that shows up with this level of defined focus more times than not, he's, you guys know I use this term aircraft carrier probably to ad nauseum of people. But this is an aircraft carrier, and this is a guy that you win championships with. And so, has he done this from a contractual salary drive, or is this legitimately the player that he is? I don't know enough to make those decisions, but the guy's there, dude. And I think they've got to be pretty excited about the player that he's turning into right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know Kevin has talked about this with Vladdy, and I don't know how you quantify this. Again, I think you're right. You probably have to know the kid. You have to know the individual. But would you at all be skeptical about what you're seeing because, the team isn't – I mean, there's really no pressure in this team right now. I don't think any of us are expecting them to be in the playoff race. The front office has kind of come out and said the season's a disappointment. Would that concern you at all, or is this such an individual game, Dan, that if a guy's hit 400 for a month, he's hit 400 for a month?
Yeah, I think Vladdy would, if his swing is right given postseason time. And, swings come and go on players. That's why it's so hard to hit. I think what I'm more excited about is the quality of the good pitching that he's hitting on a consistent basis. That can't be a fluke. Pitching at the big league level anymore it's phenomenal. And it's really hard to hit. Just look at the offensive numbers in the game. I think the league average is in the low 240s, 230s. And so what this guy is doing qualitatively is just, it is like, wow. And he's using it line to line. This is not selling out for home runs. He's an elite hitter right now. He's controlling the strike zone better. His rhythm at the plate, his competitiveness, it's just way different than it's ever been, even from his great year. I just see a more mature player, and I'll tell you guys mature at different stages of their career. It has nothing to do with age. There's just eventually a light bulb that goes on and the game begins to mean something to them beyond the original design of why they play. And they just take that big next step. And I think you're seeing that with this kid now.
Dan, do you think that Jays fans should be worried about Bo Bichette? Since about August of last year, offensively, he's been struggling. Now he's got the injuries with the right leg. It's the calf. It was the quad. It was the knee. It was basically the entire right leg. That's the leg. When he kicks the left one so high, it puts a lot of pressure on that right leg. Should Jays fans be worried about that? And front office, the happy thing, right? Just the optics of the way he looks when he's on the field. I don't know.
I get it.
It's like the fun police. It's that kind of thing.
That, to me, the second part of what your statement was spot on. I think it's a great observation on your part. Is they need to address that part first. Bo is a great player in my mind when Bo is having fun and engaged in playing the game for something bigger than himself. That part of it somewhere got lost here in Toronto. I don't have any idea for those reasons why. I don't know the situation personally. I think this kid's a highly competitive kid. I think he's going to find his way back to being a performer. But to be a great player and to be a championship player, you got to love where you're playing, and you got to love the people you're playing around, and you got to love the reasons why you're competing night in, night out. And I think those are the bigger concerns for me than his injuries.
Dan, have you ever had to do that with a player that's had success like Bo has? How do you do it? Is it like ripping a Band-Aid off? You just rip it off. You have the conversation. It's a man-to-man, me and you, this is the way it's going to be conversation. How would you go about that?
Well, I don't think you can have it if you haven't built any kind of authentic relationship with the player. I think if you have that conversation, it's like what Pittsburgh's going through right now with O'Neal Cruz is that, I mean, if you've got a great relationship with the player, meaning, in my mind, let me define what a great relationship is. You've always told the player the truth, even when you know he didn't want to hear that particular truth. So he may not care for you and your personality or how you approach things, but the one thing he can count on is your integrity and character to always tell a player the truth. So if you've created that kind of relationship with the player along the way, you can have any conversation you want with him because he knows that you're going to be totally, totally transparent with him, and you're not going to have agenda behind it because you just want what's best for the team, because the team is always more important than one individual player.
What do you feel about the Pirates moving O'Neal Cruz to center field?
Well, I do think, I don't think he's shortstop. I think he can play the position, but I don't think you're going to win a championship with him at the position. I do think he can make a transition to the outfield, but I have tried to change players' positions in my career, and I painfully learned that when you draw plans up in a front office and you put rosters together and you project on teams as you move forward, everything always fits really well when you do those exercises. Then the unintended consequences of those decisions is that you make those without getting a total buy-in from the player, and then reality hits into decisions you just made. And so if they've had numerous conversations with O'Neal through the course of the year about making this transition, then it'll go well. Because I think every player in the world is a highly competitive player that wants to succeed at the big league level. If they drop this on him with a bomb without laying the groundwork for that, that's going to be a problem. And the other question I have is to do it with 30 games to go, where they're going to DH him or half of it, and then let him start to play the position once he gets comfortable in it. I don't know why you wouldn't sit down and have the conversation with the player. Maybe they've done all this, by the way. So it's just totally speculative on my part, which is grossly unfair to the Pirates. But you say, listen, we're thinking about moving you off a shortstop. So if we don't see X, Y, and Z in the last 30 games, this is going to be the game plan we'd like you to work with us on as we get into the winter.
See, that was my first reaction to it is, with all due respect to the Pirates, well, they're 10.5 out of the wild card. Isn't this something when you have your exit interview with O'Neal Cruz at the end of the year, you say, you know what? Hey, we'd like you to, this is something we've thought about. I don't know why you drop it on a guy or why you would do so publicly, I guess, with 30 games left.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're going to know if he's not playing any shortstop, so you're going to have to address the elephant in the room. And maybe they've done all that. Maybe they've had conversations with him saying, listen, man, if you don't improve on your throwing accuracy is well below average. You don't put your body in the position from a fielding standpoint to be able to execute, plays that championship shortstops do. And we don't want to lose your value of your offensive upside for having you worry about playing a defensive position. That's a constant challenge for you. So we want to take the pressure off you. Maybe they've done all that, and now they've just gotten to the point where they really are not getting buy-in from them. And then you got to make the decision what's in the best interest of the organization. And eventually the player is going to, he's going to comply and he's going to do what's necessary. It's just, you don't want to lose his heart and soul in the process of being part of the team, because anytime you have any kind of team, like I say this, you can have the greatest character. You can have the greatest talent team in the world, but if you don't have everybody pulling on the same end of the rope with chemistry and culture, it's like having a sports car with no gas in it. And so you really just got to make sure that all these little things that seem so simple, you execute exceptionally well, because one misstep along the way And believe me, the only way I can talk like this is because I've made all those mistakes. I've done all the things that you shouldn't do. And so you got to just make sure all the little things you do, you execute exceptionally well. And that, because every player watches what you do. So even if the decision that, like with O'Neal Cruz or Bo Bichette or anybody, that doesn't really involve you, you take it as, well, at some point in time, they're going to do that to me. And so every decision you make is being watched by the other 25 players on the team, or 26 players on the team.
Dan, who's had the best season this year, Ohtani or Judge?
For me, Judge. One, just from a sheer statistical data standpoint, a Judge's weighted run created plus, I think, is 221. Ohtani's is 176. But when you have to play center field and you're 6'6", 250 pounds, and you're playing it at the level that he has, and the fatigue, and then I'm going to factor in Aaron Judge leads that ball club emotionally day in and day out. I'm not saying Ohtani doesn't, but he doesn't have the sense of responsibility that Aaron Judge does to the totality of that roster and that coaching staff day in and day out. And the difference he's made there supersedes even his numbers. And so for me, by far away, he's the runaway winner of who's having the best season in the game.
Dan, really good of you to join us. Great stuff as always, my friend. Thanks so much.
You're the best, Dan. Thank you so much.
Great, guys. Hey, you guys have a great holiday weekend, though it may not be a holiday weekend in Toronto, but have a great weekend anyway.
Thank you so much.
Care. Thank you. Dan O'Dowd of the MLB Network.
Great.
It is a holiday weekend.
Yeah, it is.
A long weekend.
I like how he's
Monday.
we do it, don't we?
We're off Monday.
Absolutely. That's exciting. I do like how he said that you can't win a World Series basically without culture. Like you have to have talent, and you know it's a marathon, not a sprint, and that kind of thing. That gets you through, more. It gets you to more peaks than valleys.
Yeah.
But you got to have that togetherness, right? You got to have everybody pulling in the same direction. It's kind of funny. It's just kind of funny, the correlation, sort of unfair or not, with the Bo Bichette thing, right? Just the optics of the way it looked when he left, and now you're getting him back, hopefully sooner than later. How's it going to look then? Like.
Well, and,
it's going to be intriguing to see that play out.
But I also let's also say this: from a distance, it looks as if Bo will be joining a group that is much happier. It's a group that is playing better baseball. It's a group that has got a winning record since going back to whatever it is, August 2nd or whatever. So he's going to be joining. He's going to be coming into a much more vibrant culture, happy culture than it was when he left, when he was hurt. And I know he's been around the team for a while, and I get all that. So, yeah, I mean, people, I'm sure Bo's aware of this. People are going to be watching him very, very carefully, and see how he is. And you know how, the body language thing is, some guys are just wired differently. I like a guy who, I know this is, I like guys, I can't tell if they're 0 for 30 or 29 for 30. That's the type of guy I like. And I don't, and hey, and that's why I'm saying, if a guy has fun, like one of the things I've never said, people talk about George Springer. Oh, George Springer's having fun and he's scuffling. I don't care. That's fine. That's the way you are. If you're like that when you're, when you're on a roll, and you're like that when you suck, I got no problem with that. But yeah, I think it will be interesting to see how Bo fits into this group.
Yeah, for the first time, I think he's got a little something to prove. I really do feel that way. Offensively, being one of the leaders of the team quietly.
I disagree.
I don't.
I think he had something to prove after the COVID year. That playoff series against Tampa, the final game of the year, the final playoff game where he made 2 errors or whatever, however many errors it was. And I think he came into the next season and was a better defensive shortstop. And since he made those errors in that playoff game, I don't know if you could sit here and say statistically he's defensively better year over year over year. But I will say this, the Jays in particular, it was obvious they were more comfortable with him at shortstop year over year over year. So I disagree that he hasn't had something to prove. Offensively, this is the first time he's had something to prove offensively.
I'm not saying that part of it. I'm saying about just optics and going into the offseason, you want to build around him. Like, I get the trade thing and the talk, and I'm in the camp. I don't think you trade him. I mean, if you trade him, you're going to be looking for Bo. Like, well, you already got Bo. It's like Dan said. It's having the tough conversation when the conversation needs to be had.
If there's no financial,
he's a prideful guy.
If there's no financial pressure, then nobody's saying you have to trade Bo. But you listen to offers.
We know for a fact they've already been listening. But again, I just think as a player, sometimes you got some things to prove. And it can be multiple things. And one of the things was defensively, could you win a World Series with Bo playing short? Well, in my mind, he's sort of answered those questions. Now it's the question of, can you get past the optics of the way it looks when the team's not going well? When it's hit the fan, how does Bo look? Like, fair or not, it's a thing. And I think that's sort of what it is, right? It's you grind it out, you have a good time doing it, and I know offense. If he's hitting, he'll have a good time. It
is really fascinating, though, just following sort of the story arc this year between Bo and Vladdy from the start of the year to now, and how the flashpoints around this team. It's all. Bo Bichette was trending on social media today.
For what reason?
No, it just was. People are talking about Bo. When Bo comes back, he's got
I read some comments about when they threw him up on the Blue Jays, threw him up on the website, taking the ground balls, and I mean, it's some vile stuff. Like, the people just don't like him anymore. Like, it's that part of it, right? It's the, and you can see it is amazing when you're living up to expectations. It's like Vladdy. Like, there was some unknowns. There's some dislike for Vladdy when he wasn't doing things that he's doing now offensively. Now it's hard. How would you not love Vladdy? I mean, he destroys baseballs. And I think there's a little bit to that when it comes to Bo. It's just, when it's hit the fan, how does it optically look?
Yeah,
and when they're losing, and then you pile on top of it the optics of the way it looks. And I don't know if you can argue with that, right? I think it's who he is. He's a grinder. He wants to win. He's very competitive. But I think sometimes there's a way of going about that. And for me anyway, I think he's got a little something to prove. And I think he understands that part of it.
Yeah.
There's some doubters with Bo. Maybe you'll get the best out of Bo now. Hopefully he's 1,000% healthy when he comes back. He doesn't have to worry about that, and he can just go out and figure it out. Because he's talented. He's good enough to do that. So hopefully we see that. Hopefully they plug him in the 2-hole and let him run with it.
Fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
Fingers crossed. David Samson is a former MLB executive. He's host of Nothing Personal with David Samson, the podcast. He'll join us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, let's not waste any time, shall we? It is Blair and Barker. Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. Without further ado, let's bring in David Samson, former president of the Miami Marlins, host of Nothing Personal with David Samson, the podcast. Mr. Samson, how are you, sir?
I am good, Jeff. How are you?
We're doing well. We're in a backup studio today because we had some issues with our other studio. But that doesn't really matter to you. I'm sure we probably look the same.
Better than going dark.
Yes. That is true. Mm-hmm. That is true. Anything is. We had Justin Verlander. No, we didn't have Justin Verlander. We had Tom. Yeah, we wish. We had Tom Glavine on earlier today,
and we good.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
we were talking about some of Justin Verlander's comments on Sunday Night Baseball about referring to a story Jesse Rogers did, where it appears as if Major League Baseball is looking at ways of possibly creating some sort of rule system where starting pitchers would be forced to stay in the game longer. There's talk about like 6 innings, 100 pitches. If you take your pitcher out, this goes back to the whole double hook thing that Jason Stark and them were talking about. If you take your starting pitcher out, you lose your DH, et cetera, et cetera. Look, I know you've been in rules committees and that, and we also know, I think, that generally Rob Manfred does leak stuff, like stuff gets put out there and he waits for people's reaction. Do you see anything to this at all? Is this just people kind of sitting around saying, if we did this, maybe this would happen?
Well, I'm not sure you're going to find 23 votes, which is the number of votes you need inside an ownership meeting in order to effectuate such change. Mm-hmm. And if there are votes for it, believe me, what they haven't leaked yet are all the caveats.
Right.
And so that's really what is interesting to me to talk about, is we can be aspirational and say we want starters to go 6 innings. Yeah, we do. We want fans to be interested in a starting pitching matchup. We don't want a bullpen game 2 of the World Series, game 3 of the World Series. All of that is true. However, we also have GMs and heads of development and player personnel who are in our ears saying, you better be very careful here, David, because you don't want a rule which puts us in jeopardy of winning or of being healthy. Ironically, health is something that maybe baseball also thinks about. But to me, Jeff, Barks, we got to think about the caveats. And the caveats are going to be so much that they'll be greater than the rule itself.
David, why don't they teach hitters to hit better?
Hitting is the hardest thing in the history of sports, in my opinion. As you know, good pitching gets good hitting 100% of the time. And the best hitters are the ones who can take advantage of mistakes. What a strange thing baseball is, that we need one person to make a mistake in doing his job in order for someone else to be able to do his job well. So I would tell you that it's hard to face 98 to 102 with spin and get a different look every time you're up, because it's like starters are now pinch hitters because they're facing different pitchers every time.
See, David, I think they can. I don't think you pay for it anymore. If I paid a dude to hit 300, you'd see more 300 hitters. You'd see more dudes choked up. You'd see more guys trying to use the entire field. We've seen guys now adjust to the elevated fastball. Like, it's a thing. They can actually do it, right? Now you see educated guessing a lot. Like, that's the sort of the flip side of, if I can't hit velocity, I'm going to educate guess all the time. Like, there's ways of combating that. I just think you're trying to gloss over sort of this rule, or the thing that we've been talking about, what the commissioner's trying to do, is to just try and, if you have to pay them for different things, pay them for different things.
I was going to say that, and that is one of the things that work too here, isn't it, David? At some point, somebody's going to sit down and say, okay, this is great. How much is it going to cost me?
Yeah.
If we do this.
There's 300 hitters, David, in baseball. It's just that's a joke. I'm sorry, but that's a joke.
I understand. And one of the things that we did talk about in those committee meetings very often is how players are incentivized. They're very much like salespeople, and salespeople are incentivized based on their commission system. That's just how life works. When you go into an arbitration room and you don't get any negatives because you have high strikeouts and low average, but you get a lot of positives for home runs and for launch angle and velocity, that's what you're going to go forward with. There is no money in average. Look at the player that the Marlins had. They got him from the Twins and sent him to the Padres, Arias.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the value that he has in the trade market. He was a trade that the Marlins made in May, and people were saying, ooh, they didn't really get too much for him. And the answer is, while he did win a batting title, not all that valuable to a team at the end of the day when you're matching assets to assets, because GMs today look at average and say, it doesn't much matter. We're not going to run into outs. I don't care how big the bases are. I don't care how many disengagement rules there are, because we're going to wait for the 3-run bomb.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I've been saying this for a while. I think that the Blue Jays are not a hard fix. I think you go out and get 2 thumpers, you get yourself a closer. Am I I see you smiling. Is that too
hard?
Much. Is that realistic going into an offseason?
You know, I love you, man, because you don't often sound like a player. But my God, do you sound like a player. I had more players say to me, hey, man, we need more bats. Well, I can't do this alone. And the pitching staff's like, our offense sucks. I can't do this. I mean, what are you talking about? 2 thumpers.
Yeah.
Who?
Santander and Brandon Lau. How's that?
Okay.
There you go.
That's great.
And a closer.
Backed out. He was going to say Alonso, and he backed out.
Yeah, I don't know how realistic that is. This seems like the Mets are going to get him. But so you're saying I'm there's no chance.
I didn't say there's no chance. I said that it's funny. I've tried the quick fix. I've tried the player way. Hey, let's bring in 2 thumpers and a closer. Did that in 2012. We sent them all to your team. We've tried to fix holes very quickly through free agency. Doesn't exactly work. Look at the teams you want to sign players from. Sounds like the Orioles.
Yeah.
What did the Orioles do? They lost 100 a few years in a row. They built young. They drafted well. And then you try to complement and add with a few free agents who have a chance to outperform. I would argue what the Blue Jays need are the same payroll resources, but better results from the decisions they've made. I don't think that's too much to ask. And if Shapiro and Atkins can't do it, we're going to keep trying and find someone who can. And I'm good with that as an owner or as a president. But I'm not willing to just walk into my GM's office and say, hey, man, find me 2 thumpers and a closer, and we got this.
My way's way more fun, David. It's way more fun.
Hey, your way wins fantasy leagues.
It is.
That's it. I love it. I love fantasy.
Yeah.
It's cool, except the reality is slightly different.
Ouch.
Well,
That hurts. Now I got to change about what I'm going to talk about the rest of the year.
Listen, I want you to keep talking about it because the audience loves it. I love it. I love watching you guys.
Oh, man.
yeah. I made this I just happened to mention that I said realistically the Blue Jays might be able to sign a free agent and then make a trade for another guy to come in and be a middle of the
Who
order.
did you say
here.
they were trading?
And I said maybe you look at trading Bo, and then he takes that and turns it into Blair wants to trade Bo, which
It's exactly
Why
what I
wouldn't
should
you?
do.
Why
saying,
wouldn't you trade?
I'm
Why would
listening.
anyone on that team be untouchable?
I'm listening. Here's the thing now. Here's the thing. The front office has kind of sort of suggested they want to run it back next year. And
They never mean that. No one runs
So you guys
it back.
lie? You lied to
Yes,
us?
we lie.
That's
what does that even
unbelievable.
mean?
I told you that yesterday. I told you that. I used the same word. I said, don't. He said, well, didn't the general manager come out and say that? And I said, yeah, but that doesn't mean you have to believe him.
Man.
Man, oh man. Why would you want to run back mediocrity?
Yeah, the fact is, I wouldn't want to just give him away just to be giving him away. Like, if I trade Bo, I'm looking for Bo. Like, that's the problem.
No, if you trade
you're
Bo,
not.
Go ahead, David.
Sorry, Jeff. I'm just
Jeff.
worked up now because
Go ahead.
Barker's playing GM. He's playing player. What do you mean you're looking for Bo? You got Bo. And guess what? You're not winning with Bo. So you have to take a realistic look at your team, and you have to be open to trading anybody on your team because you know that the collection of guys you have didn't get it done. People who win the World Series barely want to run it back because it's so hard to capture that moment and repeat it, which is why there's been no repeat champion in it's got to be 24 years already. So don't buy into any GM saying we're going to run it back. Then you should ask him if he says it. Then why are you going to the GM meetings? Why do you pick up your phone?
Right.
Give me your phone and we'll see you in spring training.
How much do you think the fact that Mark Shapiro will be going into the final year of his contract, is that at all
Great question.
an off-season factor here? Because I've always thought that.
Do more, do less.
Well, at some point, I look at a situation and go, I'm probably not going to be here to fix the mess
Why
up
would I
anyhow.
care?
So what the hell?
I'm trading Vladdy.
Here's 8 years. Come and join me. But is that an issue that maybe we haven't spent enough time talking about? The fact that the guy who is the president of baseball operations has got a year left in his contract. His manager's got 2. His GM's got 2. His star player's got 1. Like, there's a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah, I never wanted my manager to be out further than my GM, and I didn't want my GM to be out further than my president of baseball ops. It makes no sense.
Especially when
And
you're the
don't
president
let-
of baseball ops.
Well, listen, it's just when you're the president of the team, it doesn't make for a
that's right.
good
Yeah.
working environment.
Yeah.
And I would just point out that anybody who says, and this is a line that a lot of people use, I'm not even thinking about my own contract. I'm going to do the best job for this team, and we'll let that take care of itself. It's total horse hockey. Everybody thinks about his or her own or their own contract. Everybody. Does it make sense to get Shapiro signed to an extension? I wouldn't sign him to an extension right now because I just don't believe that what has gone on in Toronto has worked on the field Off the field, he has been in charge of tremendous revenue-generating progress. There's no doubt about that. But as the president of baseball ops, I'm looking around at the money I've spent, and I'm looking at the results I've gotten, and I'm saying, I'm not so sure. What do you have for me this coming year? Here's your payroll. Let's talk it through. I think that's probably a better approach, but don't be surprised if he either signs an extension or makes it clear that he will not be coming back.
Okay, I was going to ask you more things about the people that I should go out and trade for, but you've killed every single one of those. So,
that would take an hour.
So I'm going to. I didn't say running. So we're going to move on a little bit. I do want to ask you sort of a around the baseball question. More intriguing division, AL Central, NL West. Which one is going to be the more intriguing division the last 28 games of the season?
Regular season, does it expire at the end of the regular season?
No.
Oh, I was going to say AL Central, but they're all going to get swept in the first round of the playoffs.
They will.
That makes it less intriguing, but it'll be damn good until that time comes.
Yeah, it will.
That's a fun one. The problem is with the expanded wild card, and I love it, don't get me wrong. I want as many teams as possible in the race, but what are the races that we have now? There's no win and you're in, lose and you're out. All of these great races that we're seeing, all of those teams are all going to make the playoffs. It is unlikely that the Red Sox will figure out a way or the Mariners will figure out a way to get themselves back into a playoff spot. So for me, now it's who's going to win the division and then who's going to have to play a 2 out of 3. And there were a lot of arguments in the room that there are teams who would rather play the 2 out of 3 than take the days off and then lose in the first round.
Okay, I'll ask you this way about the NL West because I know where you were going with that. Which team out of the Diamondbacks or the Padres have the best chance of winning the World Series? I ask you that way.
It's a loaded question because I am personal against the Padres and A.J. Preller because of how absolutely immoral he is in terms of running his team. But I will tell you that in Peter Seiler's memory, I would like them. But if you ask me to look at the way the teams are and who I think is better equipped to perform in October, it's hard to turn your back on the Diamondbacks because they got that experience by winning the pennant last year. And as the Phillies will tell you, when you're close, you just want to work a little harder to take the next step. And for San Diego, they just haven't been that close as the Diamondbacks. And take a look. One of the key players for the Diamondbacks is their free agent, the pitcher who didn't want to go to the Dodgers at the deadline, Rodriguez.
Yep.
And then the Diamondbacks overpaid him, and he's finally pitching. He gives depth to that rotation that's going to matter in October if, in fact, he performs well, and that could be an X factor. And for the Padres, I look at their deep lineup, and I think to myself, they didn't make a run with Soto. Machado is a great and fine player. They've done it without Darvish, but there's just something about their team that's missing the it factor. So I'm going to go with the Diamondbacks.
Nice.
Yeah. No, it's as much as, I kind of like, I like what the Padres have done. There is that, there's something that you look at them and you go,
if not now, win.
That's
what I think about the Padres. If not now, win.
I don't have a level of confidence in them, I guess is what I would say.
What is it that you're saying, Jeff, that you love? You love the fact that they go all in and then down and then back up and then down with sets of players?
I do.
I did that too.
I do like the way, but I like your teams too. But I like the way that I like the way that Preller goes all in. What was that? I didn't see how
it doesn't work.
I thought you were showing me your World Series ring or something there.
Oh, I'm not wearing it today.
Yeah, well, you couldn't because it would take up the whole screen.
Yeah, it would.
But no, I listen. I like that franchise. I mean, I like the Padres franchise too. I'd like to see them win a World Series sometime.
It would be great, but if you're asking me who do I want, I mean, I love Derek Hall, the president of the Diamondbacks, and seeing him on the stage and winning the pennant. I obviously would love to see him win a World Series. And for me, obviously, San Diego is a great baseball town, but one of the things that you have to be very careful, they are not the Dodgers. They will never be the Dodgers. No. They are in debt because they want to be the Dodgers. And one of the most dangerous things in life, on and off the field, is to want to be something that you can never be. Man, I'd like to dunk a basketball, but if I spent my life trying, it would really be a waste of a life. the Padres, it's a beautiful city, but they're not L.A.
Yeah.
David, really good of you to join us as always, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thanks, David. Way to go, buddy.
See you later.
Take care. David Samson, host of Nothing
boy.
Personal with David
I got to
Samson.
come up with another thing.
Well, I've been telling you you've been wrong.
You have not told me
I've
that.
been telling you you've been wrong all
No,
along. Could add
you're
two
saying
thumpers.
thumpers. Yeah.
Add 2 thumpers and 4
Nah, you know,
relievers and a catcher and
We fired everybody. We traded Vladdy. Dang. Like,
what if everybody's back next year?
that's a tremendous question.
What if everybody's back with maybe
change in hitting coaches?
except there won't be a change in hitting coach. There'll just be another one in to add to
there'd be
it.
20 instead of 19.
I don't get the whole the whole San Diego thing. I like the Padres.
I do too.
But I admit I also judge teams by cities. So I'm not afraid to admit it. Like, I hate Chicago. That's why I don't like Chicago teams.
Yeah, I think it's me too. I wouldn't mind seeing them in there making a decent run either, just because they haven't made a decent run in a while.
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of cool, seeing different teams. I'm sort of in that boat. The Diamondbacks, I mean, do we really want to see the Diamondbacks in the World Series again? I don't. That's why I'd rather, if I had to choose between the two teams, it'd rather be the Padres. They got enough muscle, I think, the Padres
I'll tell you right now.
That's just me.
Sign me up for as much as I don't particularly like the Dodgers, sign me up for a Dodgers-Yankees World Series or a Phillies-Yankees World Series.
See, I like the Phillies-Astros. That would be, I think, a good one. Do you like the Phillies fans? Nobody likes the Astros. Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
I think heads would explode seeing Soto and Judge in the World Series together.
Probably.
With think of
that would
Bryce
be
Harper against
that would be the
them.
best thing for baseball, I think.
Oh, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think it would be too. Yeah, you're probably right. First time all week you've been right. So
used to be okay. I don't dislike the Astros.
See, I don't even.
I admire the way I don't admire what the Astros did, but I admire the fact that they've been able to keep this window of opportunity
listening
open
to
for so
David
long.
right there. If David was running the Blue Jays, what would he do?
Don Mattingly would be manager because I know how much he likes Mattingly. You want me to continue, or you want?
What would he do? He ain't running it back. Nobody's untouchable.
Well, okay. I think.
So is it a retool? Is it a rebuild? What is it?
First of all, I was going to say I think he'd get Vladdy signed, but if you remember, David's been very clear all along that he wouldn't. He's given out long-term contracts. I mean, they gave Stanton that contract, but he's been very clear. Exactly. I don't know.
You have any idea going away from that conversation he just had? Like, running it back's not a thing. Going out getting thumpers is not a thing.
I will say this. I think if he was running this team, we would know right now what the plan is for next year, because either one of these two guys would be signed or they'd both be out of here. That's what I think.
That's fair.
That's what I think.
Still have no idea what he'd do. Walking away from that conversation,
it wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be in the middle. It'll either be this, rebuilding, or that.
He's almost saying, I haven't won with him. Why would I keep him?
And
that's hard to hear. They are in the hard to hear stage.
Well, you said
the organization is in the hard to hear stage.
And that is coming from a guy who's won a World Series.
Rip that Band-Aid right off. We heard Dan saying he's got to have a tough conversation with Bo. We've heard David say, ship him out on the same.
And then there's Barker.
They're taking out than me.
All Barker wants.
I'm writing checks everywhere.
All Barker wants is them to sign Juan Soto and
you know what
Pete
I want to
Alonso.
see? The only thing you haven't tried is to put grown men around them two dudes.
All right.
Why not try it? And then you can say, I give it to them. They didn't do it.
As always, you've been entertaining and illuminating. We'll be doing Blue Jays talk tonight.
Possibly a little wrong.
We're doing Blue Jays talk tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.